Anthony.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, on the empowerment, about 15 years ago, I worked for a guy who probably claimed, and rightly, but he invented the word empowerment from the US, Bill Byam. And some people argued it came from self-directed work teams. I think there's a big difference between empowerment and engagement. I haven't got time to go into why, but I think the secret is if you don't have people who are well managed and with good organisational practices, you don't get very far. I think the UK's hung up with this engagement kind of agenda. I think it's got blown out of proportion. I think you want committed and loyal people who understand what they've got to do, get fairly rewarded, get treated honestly and kept in the know, which comes back down to this kind of what makes a big difference in organisations. I think the first thing is most successful organisations see things from the customer point of view. And I think that includes increasingly public services. So if you start from the customer point of view, you can't go far wrong. And I think that's what we should do from the kind of engaging people, start any change from what we need from a customer point of view and start to make things happen. And ask the people on the front line because they know best and not consultants.
Gary.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to pick up on the empowerment engagement, not in so much technical detail as just been described, but we work very hard at trying to empower people by basically giving them responsibilities. And the key thing that we've experienced is allowing people to make mistakes. Now, clearly, we're all in organisations where some mistakes just can't be made, or they're very high risk, but there are plenty of other things that you can allow people to make mistakes. And then how you handle that afterwards is something we see as a form of empowerment. Are managers ready for this? Well, in policing terms, it's a new concept, management, for us. We directed and ordered people to do things. So are we any good at managing? I don't know. I think we're going through a phase where we're now having to there's a transition period where we're having to think about how we manage people. And I think it's going fairly well, but we've got some way to go. The key thing for me, though, to answer the question about the one thing that really makes a difference is communication. And the lady was talking about all the regular things you do, the news sheets, the emails, the top-down presentations, all of those things. The ideas box, the good ideas box, which we've tried and doesn't seem to work very well. But the one thing that has worked well and produces some really interesting information has been close engagement with small groups of staff. Very difficult to do. Just in my group of staff, it takes me a year to get through everybody in small groups. But what's really interesting is the different message you get to the one that the middle managers are giving you. You know, the IT that we've just introduced in this area is absolutely fine. Well, actually, no, it's not, because the people using it are really struggling with it. And it closes that gap, and that's been... But communication, I mean, we communicate things across 43 police forces across the country. Some areas we've been passing a message for 5 years now in every single way we can conceivably think of, and we still meet people who say we had no idea that was going on. So hugely challenging, but for me it's all about good communication strategy.
Thanks very much. John?
I'll carry on with the communication theme because I've got two practical suggestions in terms of that. We do, and always have done, all the normal communication things, the staff newspapers, the briefings, the emails, blah, 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 the meetings. But we have introduced two things which I think have made a big difference. One is that, and this was a Listening to Action idea, actually, that came from staff. We have a team brief thing in a classic way, but we now have added to that every month a discussion topic, which can be about all sorts of different things. Some are quite practical, like improving prison dignity. Others are more about values. It doesn't really matter what the subject is. And we do basically a short brief about what the issue is and some specific questions, and we expect that to be discussed at every team meeting throughout the trust, every ward department, and for feedback to be provided. Sometimes we effectively have votes on things, or sort of referenda. Sometimes it's more qualitative, and sometimes a mixture of the two. And what that has meant that we've gone from more or less a completely top-down, one-way communication process to a huge amount of feedback coming back and some really high-quality stuff, vast amounts of material, which is summarised by our communications people every month and then fed back to the organisation. So it becomes a sort of you said, we did type of thing. And we've been doing that for about a year now, and it's certainly made a huge difference. And we've had loads of really good ideas come out of that. That's the first thing. And the second thing, which is more risky to do, but I would absolutely encourage you to do it, this is an idea we borrowed from John Lewis about 5 years ago. It predates all our engagement stuff, actually. And essentially, in our staff newspaper, which goes individually to every member of our 7,000 staff, to all intents and purposes, it looks like any other sort of big corporate staff newspaper. Apart from at the back, there's usually about 3 pages of Your Right to be Heard, which is a staff letters pages. And the way that it works is we allow every member of staff to write in about any subject they want to, anonymously if they want to. Tends to be about half and half, anonymous versus sort of attributed letters. Maybe a bit more towards anonymous, about any subject at all, with a guarantee of publication and a guarantee of response from the responsible director, manager or whatever, unless the letter is actually defamatory. So far, we must have published hundreds of letters, and I think we've vetoed 3, maybe in all that time, on those grounds. And the great thing about it is, it basically allows people to share. It allows senior management to know, and everyone else to know about all the things that have been talked about in the canteen, basically, all the things that have been minded about in the coffee room, And what we also find is that the issues that people write in about are either things where we've totally screwed up as an organisation, and we often have to say, "Yep, that was a mistake, and this is how we're going to avoid it in future." Or they're things where actually we sort of have got the right answer, but have completely failed to communicate effectively. And because it's controversial, it's read by everybody, and that means it's a very effective communication channel, whereas your general corporate speak won't be. So I would really encourage you to do that. A lot of people sort of say, "Oh my goodness, you must have nerves of steel. What if it gets in the local papers?" Well, in 5 years, it never has, and plenty of it was publishable by media, So I would really encourage that in your organisations, just as a practical tip.
Right. I'm getting signals here that I really have to bring this to a close.